Tonight's story is Roses Are Pink, Your Feet Really Stink, and it was written by Diane DeGroat. Here's the title page, and this is the dedication page. And it says, violets are blue, roses are red, to children's librarians, nuff said. And this is like a little abbreviation or just a shortened form of the word enough. There they were, 15 blank Valentine cards waiting to be filled with nice Valentine poems. They were sitting on the kitchen table in a pile as high as Gilbert's nose. Mrs. Bird had told them to write something nice for each classmate because Valentine's Day was about liking each other. Gilbert liked Patty a lot. She had smiley eyes and a silly laugh that made Gilbert feel silly too. He picked out the biggest card and wrote inside, roses are red, violets are blue. Your eyes are nice, and I like you. Gilbert. So he signed his name at the bottom. Gilbert also liked Frank. Frank let Gilbert use his baseball mitt once when Gilbert forgot to bring his own. On Frank's card, he wrote, your name is Frank, it isn't Hank. You lent me your mitt, so you I thank. Gilbert. This is fun, Gilbert thought. He continued to write nice Valentine poems until there were 2 cards left, one for Louis and one for Margaret. Gilbert didn't want to write a nice poem for Louis. Louis once tweaked Gilbert's nose until it turned red. He didn't want to write a nice poem for Margaret either. Margaret made fun of Gilbert's glasses. So he didn't write nice poems. You can tell he's kind of looking back and forth, and he's like, I don't think I want to write a nice poem. You can tell by the look on his face. On Louis's card, he wrote, violets are blue, roses are pink, your feet are big, and they really stink. Gilbert thought the poem was funny, but maybe Louis wouldn't. Maybe he would tweak Gilbert's nose when he read it. Gilbert didn't want Louis to tweak his nose again, so he didn't sign his name. He signed it Margaret. On Margaret's card, he wrote, roses are red, you wet your bed. I think that you have rocks in your head. Gilbert liked the poem, but he didn't think Margaret would. He didn't want Margaret to say mean things to him again, so he signed the card Louis. On Valentine's Day, Gilbert walked to school with 15 cards and a tin of Valentine cookies that his mother had baked for the party. Mrs. Bird let everyone open their cards. One of Gilbert's cards had X's all over the envelope, so he opened it first. It said, roses are red, violets are blue. You are my friend, and I like you. It was signed Patty. Gilbert smiled at Patty, and Patty giggled back. So this is Gilbert, and this is Patty. And there's their teacher, Mrs. Bird. Gilbert opened the rest of his cards. They were all very friendly. Even Louis had written a poem for him. You may be small, you're not very tall, but I like the way that you play ball. Louis. Gilbert was happy that Louis liked the way he played ball. And Margaret wrote, sometimes you are very sweet. I hope you brought nice cookies to eat. Love, Margaret. Gilbert smiled to himself. Margaret thought that he was very sweet. He looked over at Margaret. She wasn't happy with one of her Valentines. Which Valentine do you think that is? Do you think it might be the one that Gilbert wrote and signed it with Louis's name? She stuck her tongue out at Louis. Louis wasn't happy with one of his Valentines either. He stuck his tongue out at Margaret. Margaret pushed Louis. Louis called Margaret a bad name. Uh-oh. Mrs. Bird said, quiet, please. Valentine's Day is about liking each other, not about fighting. She made the class do workbooks for the rest of the morning. Everyone was mad at Louis and Margaret, even Gilbert. Now, do you think Gilbert has any right to be mad at them? I don't think so, because if he hadn't have done what he did, then this little situation here would have never happened. So he has no reason to be mad. He can be mad at himself, but not at them. When it was reading time, Margaret looked through all of her valentines again and said, I have 2 valentines from Louis, a good one and a bad one. Louis said, I didn't write a bad one. Someone else wrote my name. He looked through his own pile of cards and said, I have 2 valentines from Margaret and none from Gilbert. Then he shouted, Oh no! Gilbert wrote the bad cards and signed our names. And Mrs. Bird said, Quiet, please. At lunch, nobody wanted to sit near Gilbert, not even Patty. He had to sit all by himself. When he peeked over his carrot and banana sandwich, he could see Patty and Louis giggling at their table. Gilbert wondered if Louis thought Patty had smiley eyes and a silly laugh too. He saw Margaret eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like she did every day. Gilbert liked peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and wished that he was eating one too. So see, here's his friend Patty, and here's Louis, and they're talking and having a good time. And poor Gilbert over here, he's all by himself because of the way he treated his friends. Nobody wants to talk to him and be very friendly towards him right now. And that's what happens when you treat others in an ugly manner. They don't want to be friends with you. At recess, nobody played with Gilbert. And Gilbert was very sorry that he had written 2 mean and nasty valentines. So here's Gilbert, all by himself, while everybody else they have all kinds of other friends to play with. They're having a good time. When they all lined up to go inside, Patty finally asked, Why did you write bad things about your friends, Gilbert? Because Louis tweaked my nose, Gilbert said, and Margaret made fun of my glasses. Louis said, I'm sorry I tweaked your nose, Gilbert. You can tweak mine if you want. Gilbert gave Louis's nose a little tweak, but it didn't turn red. And Margaret said, I'm sorry I made fun of your glasses, Gilbert. I will wear them for the rest of the day. She put on Gilbert's glasses, but she couldn't see anything. And Gilbert couldn't see anything, so she gave them back. In art class, Gilbert made 2 new valentines out of red paper and lace. So I think he's trying to make things right between he and his friends, between Margaret and Louis. During spelling, Gilbert wrote a new poem for Louis. Violets are blue, roses are pink. I'm sorry I said that your feet really stink. Then Gilbert thought of something nice about Margaret. He liked the way that she always smelled like peanut butter and jelly. So he wrote a new poem for her. Roses are red, jelly is sweet. You smell as good as the sandwich you eat. Then, in math, Gilbert figured out that he had 364 days before he would have to write any more valentines. Finally, it was time for the party. Gilbert gave the new cards to Louis and Margaret, and he passed out the cookies that his mother had baked. And each cookie said, Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you enjoyed the story, And I'll see you again tomorrow night. Good night.